Hi, we are in chapter 9. So our lessons previous to this have been about quadratics, finding the x-intercepts, sketching a graph. We did a big section on, square roots, simplifying radicals. So today's lesson is simpler than radicals because all I've got to do is solve for the variable. So a quick recap with square roots. This right here is huge. X squared, its inverse is square rooting. So like, if I had the square root of 9 squared, we talked about this yesterday, these squares would just cancel and I would just have a 9. So if I want to get rid of a squared, I do the inverse operation. I'm going to square root it. And we're going to do that a lot today. So let's get back to our goal, our top of our paper. Students will be able to, our goal is to solve, and it's just the same as the title, solve quadratic equations. Today's a first easy day, and we're going to go a little bit harder each day, and I'm going to add more components to this. All right, so a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c. And the leading coefficient is the number in front of x squared. The number in front, basically. Our formatting today is going to be super simple. We're going to have an x squared or a y squared, and then it's going to have an equal, and then I'll have a number. Super short and super easy. I'm going to call that number after the equal sign a d, and it's just a random variable. So if d is greater than 0, positive. Greater than 0 means positive. That would be like x squared equals 16. Then I'm going to have two solutions. And you're like, why two? Well, if I had this, the square root of x, and I was trying to think of like, what could I put in there to get like, if I put a 16 and I wanted to get a 4, I could do negative and positive. So specifically, well, let me actually do the 16. What could I put underneath this square root and get a positive 16 out? What two things multiply to make positive 16?
Two negatives or positive.
So I could do 4 times 4, or it could be negative 4 times negative 4. So my two solutions are going to be a plus and a minus, and in this example, it's going to be 4. I put a plus and a minus stacked on top of each other to mean that both are represented. The positive 4 I could use, 4 times 4 is 16. The negative underneath it means the negative 4 is also a good answer. Negative 4 times negative 4 makes a positive 16. So this plus minus symbol signifies both signs are going to be answers. So if d is 0, I could be like c squared equals 0. That would be a sample problem. If d equals 0, the number after equals 0, then it has one solution. It's just 0. One solution. The square root of 0 is 0. Square root of 0 is 0. If d is negative less than 0, like j squared equals negative 4, you can't do this problem. You can't have a negative after the equal sign. If I have just a variable squared and I'm trying to get a negative result, it's like saying, what am I going to put underneath this square root symbol to get a negative 4? Or how do I get a negative 5? You can't get a negative answer. All these are always positive. You've never seen a negative after a square root. It doesn't work in math. So we're not at this level. Okay? Algebra 2, we'll talk about it again. But it has no solution. No solution. You cannot square root a negative. Okay, you cannot square root a negative. So our whole goal today to solve is we are going to square root, do the inverse operation of squared, both sides. Square root both sides. That's the big idea. So, x squared equals 4. How do I get rid of that little exponent of 2? How do I get rid of that exponent of 2? What's the whole big idea today? What am I doing? What's the inverse of x squared? What did I say it was? The square root. So if I square root the x squared, both sides, square root of x squared and square root of 4, the square root and the 2 cancel out. So x is all alone on the left, and I'm going to put, what can I do to make 4? A positive 2, 2 times 2, but also I could do negative 2 times negative 2. So my answer is going to be a plus or minus 2.
We have to write the plus and minus.
You have to write the plus and minus. That's so important for today. Your only job for each of these problems is to get the variable alone, get rid of that little exponent of 2. You do that by square rooting both sides. All right, B. Square root both sides. Square root of y squared equals the square root of 11. The 2 and the square root cancel. Y is alone. And I can't simplify 11. Square root of 11, nothing breaks it down. So this is going to be a plus or minus the square root of 11. You leave it. If you can't break it down and it's not a perfect square, you leave it. You're square rooting both sides, and your answer is going to have a plus or minus. N squared equals 5. Square root both sides. The square root of n squared. And then I square root 5. The square root and the 2 cancel each other out. N equals plus or minus the square root of 5. I can't break 5 down. You leave it, square root of 5. Try G without me. I'll walk around. Do D without me. All right, what'd you get? Out loud, tell me, what'd you get?
Oh, n equals positive or negative 5.
All right, so you square rooted both sides. The squared and the square root cancel. N equals, and a lot of you said plus or minus 5. You're right. 25 is a perfect square. Easy. 0. Square root it. Square root of m squared equals the square root of 0. The squared and the square root cancel. Up here, if d equals 0, then it has one solution. Just 0. One solution. Oh, look at F. What's going to be wrong with F, you think?
Can't.
Has a negative. You cannot square root a negative. So the X is fine, but it's like no solution. You cannot do this problem. I'm not even going to write down an answer because there is no answer in Algebra 1. All right, 81. Square root both sides. 81 is a perfect square. Out loud, what do you get? Plus or minus. But you're right, it is the 9. You think this is easy? It's the simple, and we're just going to go slow, and then tomorrow I'm going to put a number in front of the variable. And then the next day we'll add something else. Just super taking it so that you guys are going to be super successful. Square root both sides. C equals plus or minus rad 10. All right, we're going to do a group activity, so I am going to stop the recording.